Hi, I'm Crispina French, and today we are going to make a flower garland. And I make all of the things that I create out of recycled textiles. So this is actually made from a collection of recycled sweaters, buttons, and some other little found objects that you'll see as we go along. The kits come like this, and today we're going to do a little bit of unboxing. So we're going to rip it open and find the treasure on the inside. So you'll see there's a stack of circles, the actual hanging device. This is twill tape that's actually not recycled, and then a whole bunch of little leaves and green bits that we'll incorporate, and a couple different embroidery floss colors that vary from one kit to the next. And then there's a little pack here that has all the pins and needles and buttons and the smaller bits that we'll be needing to construct our kit today. So first we're going to start with laying out the 5 flowers that will be the finished piece. And first we're going to lay down the green circles. Each flower has got layers that stack together. Let's see, let's put this one on here with that. And you can choose the order. And then we're going to lay out the colorful pieces on top, and each one has a flower shape that is placed on top. The yellow ones have 2 circles, and that's for a particular type of flower that I'll show you how to make in a little bit. So don't worry if you have an extra yellow. And actually in your kit it might be an extra different color, but you'll see when you open the kit which color has 2. So there's our layout. And then we're going to take our little, the bits that came in that little envelope and place them where you think you might want them. So once you have your stacks of pieces in order, you're going to take your twill tape and just kind of stick it in between the layers. And you want to leave a span of 7 to 8 inches on the end. And when you place your twill tape inside, you don't want it right in the middle. You want it kind of toward the top of the flower so the flowers hang down and don't kind of flop over when they're in place. These are designed to be hung in a doorway or on a door. So we call them door garlands. Okay, so that's kind of where you want it. And then take some of your, the pins that are included with your kit and just pin it. And it's kind of nice just to pin it a lot so you don't have to worry about holding it too much when you're sewing. I'm gonna take these little pieces off because we don't need those right away. Okay, and then one more down here. So we have each of the leaves that are little leaves that just go on the end flowers are pinned in place. The flower piece of the gingham on top is pinned. So you want each of your pieces to kind of have a pin that's holding them in place, a pin or a couple of pins. Then you're going to take one of your embroidery floss colors and just pull out, I don't know, 1.5 yards of that and snip it. And I use all 6 strands at the same time. So then this first one, you're just going to start with your knot in between the layers, and this is the same for each of the 5 flowers. You want to just conceal your knot, and then you're stitching around the outside of your circle with just a really simple running stitch. And when you're going through the twill tape, it's a little, you have to push hard because there's a few layers in that. The twill tape is a dense fabric, so don't worry, just go slow and catch your, like right now I'm going through that little velvet leaf there and catching that little fold that we pinned into place there with my stitch. So this stitch is called a running stitch, and it's I use it a lot. It's very simple, just up and down kind of thing. And so you see how that got, you can just take that pin out now because that piece is secured with the stitch. And you have your little green sticking out there, which is kind of just adds a little flower-ness to the whole idea. If it puckers, you can kind of, spread your stitch out a little bit so it's not puckered. You want it to lay flat when you're finished with it. And you don't need to catch the gingham flower in this stitch. You're just gonna worry about the circles and the leaves that are sandwiched between and securing the twill tape. So that's really what this stitch is all about. And I like to use, I try to make the embroidery floss colors a contrasting color so you can see the stitches a little bit. The other color that was in this particular kit is a sort of baby pink color, so this one was more of a contrasting stitch, or a contrasting color. So I just want to flip this over for a minute. Do you see how the orange is slightly bigger? I'm just going to follow the edge of the green, and later I can either trim the orange off with my scissors or I can just leave it depending on what I think is going to look nicer. But I'm just turning it over so I have an edge to follow, and I'm not going to miss catching that green by looking at the larger orange circle. And then we're back around to the twill tape. So we're just going to, again, just take one stitch at a time through that so you're not trying to pull too hard against it. Okay, and then we're back to the beginning. So just to end your seam, there's a couple things you can do here. You can either just tie a knot and be done with it, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my center pieces back down, or that one piece anyway. I'm going to slide my needle underneath inside the pocket we just made with the 2 layers, and I'm going to show you how to do what I call a ladder stitch, which is kind of like, there's 2 stitches involved. There's a ladder stitch and a running stitch. So we just did the running stitch, and here we go with ladder. So you're just going to come up through all the layers, and then you're going to go back down over the edge of the cut edge of the piece. Super simple. This stitch is similar to something called a whip stitch. A whip stitch has more of an angle to it, so I like the perpendicular kind of finish to this stitch, making it a ladder stitch versus a whip stitch, but you can choose what you like better. Mainly what you want to do is secure your pieces together, and when you stitch over the edge like this, it kind of makes the piece that you're stitching, that pink piece in the middle, lie down nice and flat, whereas if you used a running stitch, it would be more, it would sort of stand up on the edge, so it would give you a different kind of texture. And again, you can choose, this is just how I like to do it. Okay, now we're back to where we started, and we're going to add that button. And again, I'm just going to go behind there, come up so we can use the same piece of embroidery floss. And there's the button going down. This one happens to have 4 holes in it. You might have a 4-hole button, or you might have a 2-hole button. It doesn't matter. You just want to stitch through it, and I usually go through it a couple times just to secure it in place. It's not really going to have a lot of pull on it, so it's not like sewing a button down to a piece of clothing, but there. So there you go. There's your first little flower on your flower garland. And and let me show you how to end it. So you just turn it over, and I hold this yarn straight up like this, or the embroidery floss, and then I just make a knot that I can pull down to the surface. There. And then I finish with the end inside those knots can be really little, and rather than risking them pulling out, if you stitch your last stitch just away from the knot, and then you can cut it right close to the surface. Okay,